He dislocated Robert Whittaker's jaw with a face crank, missed weight by 7.5 pounds in a main event, started a backstage brawl the day before a pay-per-view, disappeared for months with health problems. Nobody fully explained. Then visa complications tied to his political associations kept him out of the United States entirely, changed divisions repeatedly for years, got publicly linked to one of the world's most controversial political figures. In most sports, that level of chaos destroys a career completely. Chaos kills momentum in every measurable way. Unpredictability kills marketability. Inconsistency kills championship aspirations. With Khamzat Chimaev, it did the opposite. But somehow, every single time chaos hits Khamzat Chimaev, the mystique gets bigger, not smaller. He's 15-0, undefeated, UFC middleweight champion since August. Number 3, pound for pound in the entire sport, has never been in serious trouble inside the cage across 9 UFC fights. Dislocated Robert Whittaker's jaw with a face crank. Knocked out Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds flat. Made Kamaru Usman look ordinary and slow. Dominated Dricus du Plessis for 25 straight minutes to win the title, 50-44 on all 3 scorecards. And he accomplished it all while operating in complete chaos from start to finish. Here's the mechanism. In MMA, chaos doesn't just hurt you. If you keep winning anyway, chaos becomes a fog machine. Less data, more fear, bigger aura. Every chaos event strips your opponent of information they need to solve you. Less predictability equals harder preparation equals scarier fighter. That's the engine running underneath every event in this breakdown. This is why chaos makes Khamzat more dangerous, not less. 7 chaos events that should have ended his career before it started. Why each one fed the fog machine instead. And why you cannot beat what you cannot predict in combat sports. September 9th, 2022. UFC 279 weigh-ins. Las Vegas. Khamzat scheduled to fight Nate Diaz in the main event. Non-title welterweight limit 171 pounds. Khamzat stepped on the scale, 178.5, missed by 7.5 pounds, shrugged, smiled, said that's not bad. Medical team had stopped his cut due to complications. Entire card reshuffled overnight. Nate fought Tony Ferguson. Khamzat moved to a catchweight with Kevin Holland. Normal logic, loses main event slot. Branded unreliable, welterweight title hopes gone. What happened? Proved he's too big for 170, made every prior welterweight win look more impressive, retroactively, created the narrative of a middleweight fighting down a division. The unpredictability became the brand. He still won. Submitted Holland first round. Chaos fed the fog. Less trust in the system. More fear of the fighter. One-liner. He didn't miss weight. He changed divisions by accident. The fog machine got thicker. September 8th, 2022. One day before UFC 279 weigh-ins. Backstage before the press conference. Khamzat and Kevin Holland, verbal altercation, escalated to physical. Khamzat kicked Holland. 4 fighters and teams involved. Dana White canceled the entire press conference, called it a big show backstage. Normal logic. Grounds for suspension. Press conferences sell cards. Khamzat cost the event a major marketing window. What happened? Made him look genuinely unhinged. Not a character. Actually chaotic. Holland still had to stand across from him 24 hours later, knowing Khamzat had already kicked him backstage. That's not trash talk. That's psychological warfare with no script. You cannot prepare for a fighter operating with zero predictability before the cage even closes. One-liner. When chaos has no script, your opponent can't either. December 2020. COVID. Multiple hospitalizations. Lingering symptoms. Fight with Leon Edwards canceled. In March 2021, Khamzat briefly considered retirement, then returned inconsistently. 1 fight in 21, 2 in 22, 1 in 23, 1 in 24, 1 in 25. The medical explanation was never fully public. He disappeared, then reappeared, then disappeared again. Normal logic. Fighters who vanish lose momentum. The UFC moves fast. Younger fighters take spots. What happened? Scarcity created demand. Every Khamzat fight became an event because nobody knew when the next one was coming. Highlight reels circulated longer without new footage to replace them. He'd return and finish someone round 1. The mystery did marketing work for free. One-liner. The less you see him, the more you fear him. This is the chaos event most people miss entirely. Khamzat's close association with Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, a deeply controversial political figure, created direct real-world consequences beyond mystique. According to reporting at the time, visa complications tied to that association restricted Khamzat's ability to fight in the United States for extended periods. This is why his fights moved to Abu Dhabi, why he relocated to the UAE in 2023, why he received UAE citizenship in January 2025 and became the first UAE athlete to win a UFC title. Normal logic. Visa issues create scheduling chaos. Limited US access limits your biggest market. Relocating mid-career disrupts training, team, momentum. Political ties become PR liability. What happened? It forced geographic scarcity. fights in Abu Dhabi became events in themselves. The political association made him feel like something the sport couldn't fully contain or control. Not manufactured edge, real edge with real consequences that kept stacking. And the UAE citizenship created a new identity layer nobody had seen before in the sport. More fog, more unknown, less solvable. One-liner: when external chaos handles your scheduling, absence does the marketing. More chaos, more fog. Started UFC career competing at both welterweight and middleweight. Too big for 170, but kept trying. UFC 279 proved he could not make welterweight safely. Should have committed years earlier, instead spent extended periods uncertain between divisions. Which title? Which opponents? Where does he belong? But the limbo made him impossible to categorize. Welterweights feared the size, middleweights feared the speed and wrestling. He existed in the gap between two divisions, and nobody had a clean blueprint for handling him. October 26, 2024, he submitted Robert Whittaker with a face crank that dislocated Whittaker's jaw. August 2025, he beat Dricus du Plessis, 50-44 on all three scorecards. Ground control for over 21 of 25 minutes. 15-0. Middleweight champion. Normal logic. Years lost. Title shot delayed. Matchmaking complicated. Career stalled in uncertainty. What happened? The gap between divisions became the weapon. You cannot compare someone who doesn't fit either category. Comparisons are how fighters get solved. Remove the comparison and you remove the roadmap. The fog was structural. One-liner: if you can't categorize him, you can't game plan him. 2020. 2 fights in 10 days. Fastest start in UFC history. Then 1 fight in 21. 2 in 22, 1 in 23, 1 in 24, 1 in 25, 6 months as champion with no defense scheduled, 9 UFC fights across 6 years. Normal logic: inactivity kills rankings. Champions who don't defend get stripped. Hungry fighters overtake them. What happened? 9 fights, 9 dominant wins, 0 sustained competitive rounds that exposed a clear weakness. Inactivity preserved the aura because there was never enough footage to build a reliable model of his limits. Every prep camp studied a ghost. You cannot find the hole in someone who hasn't shown one. One-liner: limited footage is a tactical advantage disguised as a scheduling problem. Fighters openly avoid him. Whittaker's jaw dislocated by a face crank. Meerschaert knocked unconscious in 17 seconds. Li Jingliang submitted round 1. Holland submitted round 1. Usman made to look slow and ordinary. Burns' fight represents roughly 70% of all significant strikes absorbed across his entire UFC career combined. Never bled, never visibly tired, never looked beatable for a sustained stretch across 9 fights. When elite fighters decline matchups, it is easy to call it politics or money or positioning. But they watched the tape. They saw Whittaker's jaw. They did the math on risk versus reward, and the numbers didn't work. The avoidance doesn't need an explanation. It is the explanation. Normal logic: avoidance creates narrative that contenders are ducking. Bad for sport optics. What happened? The avoidance validates everything without Khamzat having to say a word. He doesn't need to prove the fear is rational. The ranked fighters refusing matchups prove it for him. That's the fog working at maximum effect. The most dangerous thing in the sport is a fighter everyone knows is dangerous, but nobody wants to verify firsthand. One-liner: fear is the only metric that matters when the tape runs out. 7 chaos events. 7 different disasters. Same outcome every single time. Weight miss that proved he's too big for an entire division. Backstage brawl that proved the chaos isn't performance. Health mystery that created scarcity through absence. Visa complications that manufactured geographic scarcity and added a layer nobody could decode. Division limbo that removed every useful comparison. Inconsistent activity that preserved the aura by limiting the footage. Fear factor that validated everything without requiring new proof. In most sports, chaos destroys momentum systematically. Consistency wins championships. Predictability builds sustainable success. Islam Makhachev built dominance through volume. Ilia Topuria built legitimacy through activity and marketing clarity. Both are systems. Both are solvable because systems have inputs you can study. By the time he became champion, the fog machine was already built. Khamzat proves the opposite system works. Every chaos event stripped one more data layer from his opponents. Less data means less preparation. Less preparation means more fear. More fear means the fog is working before the cage even closes. That's the mechanism from the beginning, whether by design or accident. At this point, it doesn't matter which. The UFC cannot eliminate his chaos. They can only contain it temporarily, and contained chaos is still chaos waiting to break free. In most sports, chaos destroys careers. In Khamzat's career, it removed the data. Less data means less preparation. Less preparation means more fear. And fear is the real advantage in a fight. 15-0. Middleweight champion. The fog machine is still running, and nobody has solved it yet.